Welcome to writinglong.com. Today's episode is about always judging a book by its cover, which in some cases you should do because really it's just embracing that side of yourself that really does know what it's doing when it does so. What does all that mean? Inherently, a first impression is quick, instantaneous. It's something that you can't avoid. It's just like a knee-jerk reaction. You go to the doctor, they hit your knee, it moves right. Hopefully it does. If not, there's all kinds of natural responses we have as humans. So seeing first impression is really important. You can't discredit it. You can pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. And really the sense of becoming aware of this and utilizing this and not denying this part of yourself allows you to have more control over it. Awareness is power. It's been said knowledge is incredibly, it's a great factor, but it's not just knowledge. It's the concept in general underneath that of being aware of yourself, knowing your own reactions to things, knowing the way that you respond allows you to navigate the world. And of course, writing as an extension of that in a much more streamlined, easier way, things just make a little more sense. You acknowledge what you don't know, but you also acknowledge that, why did I have that first impression? Why did I think that? You don't have to let it control you in that sense. You're just kind of, it's not really self-mastery. Again, it's just self-knowledge, which goes really, really far. And you're the one writing, right? You're the self behind your own words. So to know that, even just a small part, even just a little more than someone who's not actively trying to understand those parts about themselves, that's all you need. And it doesn't exalt you or anything. It doesn't make you, oh, wow, I'm so great. I understand all this about myself. Because really, it's almost nothing. The limits of your own brain, they exist. And when you are aware of those as well, that also allows you to proceed even further. It's ironic. It's like these two conflicts, like this conflicting dichotomy. It's like both sides collide, contract, and break apart, and suddenly it's like freedom. It's like freedom of mind, freedom of self and understanding. And as a writer, you want to get to that place. Now, I would never discredit or discourage you from learning more about who you are. And with books, I mean, come on, a cover says a lot. It's intention in a very visual way. It's defining of the context and what's behind it. I mean, you can get a book, right? And there's movie characters on it. What are movie characters doing on a book? Oh, well, it was a film adaptation. Well, why are they using them to market the book? I mean, I'm sure there was. You may look and find there was an older copy of the book that had something else. And even that, the publisher themselves had a say. If it was like a major publisher, they had a say in what it looked like, and they had a reason for that. And there's a reason it was published. There was a reason. All this stuff, it's loaded with information. Judging isn't always bad, right? I mean, you can walk around and judge everything. It doesn't mean you're saying this is good, this is bad. Like judgment in the whatever you want to say legal sense, right? It's not exactly just moral navigating. It's not always entangled with morality. More or less, it's just a balance. It's a tipping of a scale. So with your mind, you're doing that too. You're like, where does this fit in? How does that connect to that? And if you judge things, maybe you're not a judgmental person at all. Or maybe you are. You don't realize it. If you try to have some kind of understanding of what's behind something, where is this coming from where did it arrive from, and where is it headed? That whole type of thought process, it's a little more, again, it's strictly tied to your own perceptions, and it's something you do kind of have to develop. You have to want to develop it. And I think all people, if they got a taste of what it's like, you know what it's like already. I think you're on the same kind of journey of understanding yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching something like this, right? You wouldn't. You just wouldn't. And not even just my channel in general, listening to my stuff. I mean, just in general, something like this at all. That's just kind of challenging you and bringing to mind and having these discussions, this kind of discourse. As a writer, judge books. Just judge the covers. Like, Don't let that hold you back. And other things that you see and encounter in the world, judge them, and understand too that level of knowing what you mean when you're judging something. It's not saying this is good, this is bad. It's just I want to know more about it. Like I have an opinion about it. I have a there's some level of what do I have to say about it? You can say things about anything. That's what you are as a writer. You have something to say. If you had nothing going on in here in your head, I don't think you'd be capable of writing, but you do. If you're drawn to it because your mind is it's active. It might even be kind of loud sometimes. Some people's aren't. I mean, some people's mind is just it's quiet, subdued, and they could be loud in person. Or some people can be very quiet into themselves in person, but in their head, there's all kinds of screaming and yelling and all this stuff. And as long as something's going on up there, and you got something to write about, and you trust me on this, you would be hard pressed to fill up all the books in the world, all the paper in the world with every single thought in your head. It's like infinite, especially when you disconnect just this sense of selfishness, like, oh, the world revolves around you, that kind of attitude, and you understand how your actions relate to others. That in itself is expanding your own thoughts, your own concerns, and because of that, you have even more to think about. You have even more to, judge. Judgmental people judge themselves too, right? Judge yourself. Look in the mirror. Look, hear what's coming out of your mouth. Hear the things you say, and reflect back on them. That in itself creates even more dialogue, even more discussion, even more thoughts. It's recursive, and I think most people should just openly admit that they judge. We judge. It's not bad at all. In fact, again, if you deny it about yourself, what are you really doing? You're surrendering control of it. You don't know where that's going to take you. You're blindly having these responses, and you might make certain decisions, take certain actions in your life that don't really correspond to something that you like, because you don't know the influences. You're not accepting the reality of them. And there's plenty of books I have not read just because of the covers. I didn't like them. You can call me ignorant, you call me whatever you want. I am honest about that. It just didn't speak to me. Like if they released it and there's a cover like this, and the publisher thought it was okay to put a cover like this on it, I mean, if the author themselves decided on this and they were a part of that, I'm not feeling it. I'm just not. I don't hate the book at all. I'm just not going to read it. And there's not a police going around like, you ever read this book? We're locking you up. Like, I would hope not. I would really hope not, depending on where you're listening to this, for certain books. But that's how it is. You have to make decisions as you would in writing. There's stuff you're going to include. There's stuff you're not going to include. Get in the habit of that. Let it be you don't have to go this far. This is just an extreme example of visual, seeing it in your head. It's like there is kind of a court, there is kind of a judge, and you're the judge, but you're also the witnesses, and you're also the trial speakers, you're the lawyer, you're all this stuff, and you're breaking apart your mind into these different places, and you're having those conversations. You're on this, oh, but this, oh, but that, and eventually, what does that arrive at? A decision in your book, in your writing. Do I want to include this character? What should they say? What should they do? And all of this happens very naturally. You're not going to be spending months deciding, should I include this character? Should I kill this character? Like, you're not going to spend 15 years of your life doing that. It's just going to really be something that you can watch. You perceive it occurring. It's flowing events. But it's not like this agonizing waiting period. You can accelerate it as much as you want, because in your mind, you're in control of it. You can't control many things, but you can kind of control what's going on. If you want to embrace some sense of agency with yourself, some kind of free will means whatever it means to you. But as a writer, it does mean something very specific. And again, it's this act of creation being intentional, not forced at all, but definitely with intent. Because with intent, that allows you to be sincere. And when you have sincerity in anything you do, in any writing at all, when you're really coming at it from a place of wanting to show something to people, I don't just mean, oh, I want to help people, that kind of thing. I mean, that could be something, but I mean, you really want to bring something. You're saying this stuff because it comes from a real place. You're not just reading it off a script. You're copying something else and repeating it from as your own. I mean, like it's come to you. It's within you. It's a part. It's ingrained, and therefore it's free form. It never ends. That's what your thoughts are. That's what your writing is, and that's kind of judging does play a part in that. Decision making plays a part in that. Some might say it's semantics. Isn't all language, isn't all conversation semantics? I may talk to you about something and you may have a completely different idea of what that word means. But being aware of that allows me to have a better conversation with you, allows you to have a better conversation with me, with someone else. As a writer, you've got to have that. You've got to have sincerity, and there's a path there. There are paths there, and there's ways to get there. It's not impossible. It's not something you got to seek out and climb the mountains to discover. It's already within you, as most of the stuff is. Check out How to Write a Book in 30 Days on my website, writingalong.com. A completely free guide I offer. Highly recommend you check it out. See you, and I really appreciate you stopping by on this episode. Thanks for checking writingalong.com out, all this content. And I'll see you around on the next episode. Thanks again.